Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel continues to actively confront hostilities by Iran's proxies on 7 fronts. Moscow and Washington trade insults at the UN Security Council over efforts to secure a ceasefire for the Gaza Strip. The British government insists that its decision to suspend a number of defense exports licenses to Israel do not alter London's unwavering support for Jerusalem. The IDF continues to conduct extensive operational activities on all 7 fronts of warfare, including primarily in the Gaza Strip, Judea and Samaria, as well as Lebanon. In the Hamas-plagued Gaza Strip, IDF forces continue to eliminate dozens of Hamas terror operatives daily and to degrade terror-related infrastructure, including tunnels that have been utilized by the Palestinian terror group in terror operations against IDF forces that are operating in the field.
כוחות ההנדסה של החטיבה הצפונית ואוגדת עזה השמידו מנהרת טרור התקפית בצפון רצועת עזה. בתוך המנהרה מצאנו תשתיות המוכיחות כי התוואי שימש את חמאס באופן משמעותי לפעולות טרור נגד כוחותינו.
In parallel to ongoing intelligence-centric battles throughout the Gaza Strip, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah has launched dozens of projectiles from Lebanon toward Israeli territory. According to the IDF spokesperson's unit, approximately 65 projectiles fired from Lebanese territory were identified crossing into northern Israel. The IDF aerial defense array successfully intercepted some of those projectiles, and some fell in open areas. Moreover, per the statement, a number of fires were ignited by fallen projectiles, and the Israel Fire and Rescue Services are operating at the scene. In tandem, the Israeli Air Force has struck multiple rocket launchers belonging to Hezbollah throughout southern Lebanon, with chief focus on the areas of Hayam, Aita Eshab, Kfar Shauba, Alma El Shayeb, and Kfar Kila. And while exchanges of cross-border fire have become a regular occurrence in northern Israel since October 8th of last year, former Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz, who persistently leads the polls as the most significant opposition figure, responded to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address yesterday, during the course of which he insisted that while the Philadelphia corridor is indeed important, it requires far more than just to maintain a presence for oversight.
השליטה בציר פילדלפי היא חשובה והיא אתגר מבצעי חשוב נגד ההברחות וההתעצמות. אבל נתניהו יודע שמגדלי תצפית לבדם הם מטווח ברווזים ללוחמינו ולא בולמים מנהרות. נתניהו יודע שיש תוכנית שקידמה מערכת הביטחון לחסימה תת-קרקעית של המנהרות, שהיא הפתרון האמיתי לציר, כולל מעורבות ישראלית, אבל נתניהו לא מקדם אותה ביטחונית ומדינית, ולא נפגש עם נשיא מצרים סיסי. נתניהו לא מעצב פתרון למעבר רפיח, המקום שבו עוברים חומרים דו-שימושיים.
Gantz, who formerly served as the 20th IDF Chief of General Staff, went on to push back on Premier Netanyahu's voice stance that the Philadelphia corridor is a strategic challenge to the state of Israel that would determine Israel's future, while further asserting that if the Prime Minister cannot withstand international pressure to ensure Israel's security needs, he should call for early elections.
אבל בוא נגיד את האמת. ציר פילדלפי הוא אתגר מבצעי, אבל הוא לא האיום הקיומי על מדינת ישראל. ציר הרשע של איראן הוא האיום הקיומי עלינו. איום קיומי הוא איום אסטרטגי ביטחוני, והוא מורכב גם מקריסה של כל מרכיבי החוסן של מדינת ישראל. הכלכלה, שימורו של צבא העם, ביטחון הפנים שנשחק, המבנה הדמוקרטי החוקתי והפילוג שקורע אותנו. ולכן חייבים לצאת לבחירות שיחזירו את האמון בין העם לנבחריו, ולבנות פה ממשלת הסכמות לאומית שתהיה ראויה לעם הנפלא הזה. כי התמודדות עם איום קיומי עוברת דרך ביטחון לאומי אמיתי ודרך חוסן חברתי והסכמה רחבה ללא קיצוניים, כשהאינטרס המוביל הוא האינטרס הלאומי ולא האישי והפוליטי הצר. ולהתמודדות עם האיום הקיומי האמיתי, אתה כבר אינך מסוגל לדאוג.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office released a statement in response to Benny Gantz's remarks in which it asserted, quote, "The reality speaks for itself. Since Gantz and his party left the government, Israel has eliminated the Hamas chief of staff and the Hezbollah chief of staff, attacked the Houthis, captured the Philadelphia corridor, Hamas's armament pipeline, and carried out a preemptive strike against Hezbollah that thwarted its malicious plan and destroyed thousands of rockets aimed at the Galilee." The statement further underscored, "Whoever does not contribute to the victory and the return of our hostages should not interfere." Turning to the United Nations headquarters in New York, where the deputy ambassadors of Russia and the United States had a heated exchange during a UN Security Council meeting, that after Moscow, which persistently refuses to recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization or even condemn it, requested more details about contents of ongoing negotiations for a hostage release deal.
Может быть, вы потрудитесь вместо этого хотя бы объяснить нам в этом зале, какие модификации Соединенные Штаты предлагают в сделку с Хамас, которую устраивает в Израиль, о которых мы ничего не знаем. Мы уже неоднократно требуем, чтобы нам была предоставлена эта информация, потому что резолюция 2735 содержит весьма конкретные параметры, за рамки которых мы выходить не должны. Вы все это время вводите Совет за нос. Будьте любезны ответить.
Implementation is the issue here. The framework is there. It's the implementation. And Hamas, at many, many times, has changed its views on some of the steps that were previously agreed on. So what we are trying to do is effectively fill those gaps and work with the parties to do that. So you can sit here and criticize the United States for all the steps it has and hasn't taken, but we have been committed from the beginning and have done more, frankly, than your government has done to try to end this war. And we will continue to work. So you're more than welcome if you want to sit there and use another opportunity, as you do at every occasion, to attack the U.S. for this or for that. You certainly, that's your right to do that. But we are going to do the serious work of trying to end this conflict and not sit here and start blaming the world for what's going on. This is a very, very deep and challenging and long-standing conflict, and we are working and have worked harder than your government has at any point to try to end this overall conflict. So my recommendation to you and your government would be, if you're going to contribute something positively, then contribute it. If not, you should be quiet.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer sought to defend his government's decision to suspend some 36 export licenses of munitions to Israel in a move that has drawn broad rebuke.
Let me be very clear about that. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We absolutely recognise and support Israel's right to self-defence and have taken action in support of that right of self-defence. And I've made that repeatedly clear in all of my engagements with Israel across the region and with all of our allies. I absolutely stand by that. But in relation to licences, this isn't an Israel issue. It's the framework for all licences that have to be kept under review. It's the same test for all licences, as the Prime Minister knows. And having applied the law to the facts and come to a legal conclusion, I don't think the Prime Minister is really inviting me to put that to one side. We have to, the Leader of the Opposition. This is a serious issue. We either comply with international law or we don't. And we only have strength in our arguments because we comply with international law. I appreciate the party opposite didn't think that international law mattered, and that's why we got into that pickle that we did.
Earlier, British Defence Minister John Healey clarified that the UK remains committed to its alliance with Israel.
We are a staunch ally of Israel. We remain a staunch ally of Israel. We've made this legal judgment as a result of the process we're required to follow. We've suspended the export licenses on 30 out of 350 parts. These are ones that could be a clear risk in breaching international law in Gaza, but our determination to stand with Israel, to be part of the collective defense if they come under direct attack again, as they have done before, remains resolute and absolute.
London's top defense official went on to stress that the approximately 30 licenses suspended were exclusively for offensive purposes, which Israel utilized in its offensive against the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
Because these are the parts for equipment which are being used in Gaza, in the conflict, for offensive purposes. And the vast majority of other components or parts or items that this country exports to Israel are either not related to the conflict or may be used for Israel's defense. And so this is very specific. We're following the rules of a tough export regime that's been in place for a number of years in this country.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. Please pray for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hessen wishing you a Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our upcoming TV7 Israel updates. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.